Welcome back to Flip the Tables. This week we are taking on generational gaps and welcoming not one, but two guests, Mr. Patrick McElhaney and Mr. Cooper Hunt. We'll be discussing some areas that seem to be a little touchy when it comes to various generations being in the workforce and listening to their specific viewpoints. This episode, we will continue to challenge leadership norms, flip those sacred cows, and remind everyone that Jesus somehow managed to lead across generations without a single personality assessment. Please note, we will be discussing specifically boomers through Gen Z during this episode. So if you're unsure of your generation, here's a quick little breakdown. Boomers, 1946 to 1964. Gen X, 1965 to 1980. Millennials, 1981 to 1996. And Gen Z, 1997 to 2012. Now, I will mention that some silent generation members are still in the workforce, and Generation Alpha have started entering the workforce, making that 6 active generations happening in the workforce right now. But we're only going to be focusing on these 4, as those are the 4 that I currently work with. So here is another quick breakdown of how generations stereotypically work. Baby boomers bring a deep commitment to hard work and loyalty, and may sometimes wonder if newer generations define hard work a little, differently. Gen X is known for independence and grit, often carrying a heavy load while insisting they're fine, even when they are very clearly running on empty. Millennials have driven innovation and cultural shifts in the workplace, yet somehow still find themselves taking the blame for just about everything that's changed along the way. Z values efficiency, purpose, and transparency, and isn't afraid to ask why something isn't done a certain way, especially if that certain way is involving a 47-page PDF that no one is actually going to read. Jesus led across generations without starting cultural wars, and you can too. Great leadership isn't about deciding which generation is right. It's about recognizing that each one carries a piece of what is needed. Boomers bring discipline and consistency. Gen X brings resilience and ownership. Millennials bring adaptability and innovation. And Gen Z brings clarity and purpose. The problem isn't the differences. The problem is when leaders fail to translate between them. This is where love leadership becomes essential. Because love in leadership looks like listening before labeling, valuing before correcting, and bridging before dividing. It means creating a culture where experience is honored, change is embraced, and no generation feels dismissed or misunderstood. The strongest leaders don't flatten generational differences. They leverage them, because when you lead with love, what could have been tension becomes alignment, and what could have been frustration becomes understanding, and what could have been division becomes strength. Generational tension is real. Dill, Altman, and Rogelberg tell us that generational differences shape expectations around communication, authority, and work-life integration. Meanwhile, Twenge notes measurable shifts in values and motivations across generations. Quick in your face translation here. They're not wrong, they're just a little different. However, instead of being curious on how they can all work together, leaders often choose to break them down into different stereotypes, roles, or the back in my day. Scripture warns us about this. Philippians 2:3 reads, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves." Humility is hard when you're convinced that your generation invented competence. Jesus led across generations, so let's look at his team. Keener estimated through his research that Jesus' disciples ranged from teenagers to older working men, meaning that Jesus ran a multi-generational startup with fishermen, a tax collector, and at least one political extremist. Somehow, through that, no one wrote a single passive-aggressive scroll about it. Jesus didn't lead by demanding uniformity. He led with love. John 13:35 reads, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Not if you agree on a communication style or if you prefer email over TikTok, but with love." Edmondson tells us that psychological safety improves cross-generational collaboration. Goldman tells us that empathy is a critical leadership competency. Randall, Galvin, Shore, Earnhardt, Chung, Dean, and Kid Harnath, yes, all of them, work together to prove that inclusive leadership drives strong engagement across generational age groups within the workplace. In a little simpler terms, love works. Who knew? However, some leaders still try everything except love through developing more policies, more trainings, and more PowerPoints with stock photos of diverse people laughing over a salad. Meanwhile, if we would crack open the best leadership book we've ever been given and read 1 Corinthians 13:4 through 5, we would realize that we already have a strategy that works. It reads, "Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not self-seeking, patient with different work speeds, kind toward different communication styles, and not self-seeking when your preferences is not the priority." Now let's define love leadership within this subject. Love leadership is the intentional practice of choosing the good of others over comfort of your preference. Yes, even when they schedule meetings that could have been emails, especially then. Love listens before labeling. James 1:19 tells us everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak. So before saying kids these days, try asking, what motivates you? How do you prefer feedback? What does meaningful work look like to you? It's revolutionary stuff here. Love adapts without losing truth. Jesus contextualized his message without compromising it. 1 Corinthians 9:22 reads, "I have become all things to all people." Paul said that, learning from Jesus. Love leadership says the mission is fixed and the methods are flexible. Love values every generation's strength. Let's start with scripture. 1 Corinthians 12:14 reads, "The body is not one part, but many." And Randall with his whole crew proved that through their research that multi-generational teams outperform homogeneous ones. Why? Because boomers bring experience. Gen X brings pragmatism. Millennials bring collaboration. And Gen Z brings transparency. And together, they bring just the right amount of memes and office emails. Jesus consistently crossed generational and cultural boundaries. He affirmed children when society dismissed them in Matthew 19:14. He honored elders while challenging their legalism in Matthew 23. He called young disciples into leadership in Luke 10. He didn't pick just one generation, he built a kingdom. Galatians 3:28 tells us there is neither Jew nor Greek, Christ Jesus. If Paul can erase centuries of division in one sentence, we can survive differing opinions on workplace items. Whether we want to admit it or not, we have all had that moment where we are sitting in the meeting thinking, are we even speaking the same language right now? This is real tension. Applebaum, Winger, Buitrago, and Core prove that generational differences in communication styles, work values, and expectations can create conflict if leaders do not, let me repeat that, do not intentionally address it. But here's where I want to start flipping the tables. The biggest mistakes that leaders make is thinking the problem is the generations. It's not. The problem is the lack of translation. Every generation brings something valuable to the table, but if we don't take the time to understand it, and understand each other, we will never benefit from it. Lines and Curon show that while we are dealing with generational differences, they are often overstated. This means that entire narratives around these gaps have been built, creating even more division than the differences themselves. So what does love leadership do differently about it? We never pick a side. We simply build a bridge. Love leadership says, I'm going to value what you bring even if I don't fully understand it yet. Yet is the key word here, showing them that you, as the leader, are willing to get to the point of understanding. Because let's circle back here. Boomers bring discipline and consistency. Gen X bring resilience and ownership. Millennials bring adaptability and innovation. And Gen Z bring clarity and purpose. That's not dysfunction. That is a dream team. However, a lot of times we run into hearing things like, they just don't want to work. They are stuck in their ways. They want everything handed to them. They think they know everything. And with those comments, we've suddenly created division before we've even tried dialogue. Rudolph, Rivolio, and Zacher caution leaders against overgeneralizing generations because it can lead to bias in decision-making and missed opportunities for collaboration, which means your assumptions might be your biggest leadership blind spot. So here's where love enters. Love comes in not with softness or being passive, but intentional and active. Love that listens before correcting. Love that seeks to understand before evaluating. Love that says, help me see what I'm missing here. Because in reality, every generation has been shaped different by experiences. And honestly, breaking that statement down further, every person has been shaped by different experiences. So why try to put them all in the same box? Scroth highlights Gen Z for their value of transparency, flexibility, and purpose at such a high level because of the world that they've grown up in. Just because they may ask why doesn't immediately mean rebellion. It could be alignment. And in reality, it's probably a question that we should have already been asking. Wang, Zhang, and Sun found that generational diversity, when paired with shared leadership, actually increases innovation and team performance. The thing that has been deemed a problem is actually a competitive advantage if we are leading it well. So the question should not be, how do I fix generational gaps? It should be, how do I lead in a way that connects them? And no, I'm not sending you on your own research mission. I will give you the answer here. The answer is, you probably already guessed it, love. Love that creates space at the table. Love that invites perspective. Love that refuses to let misunderstanding turn into division. Because the goal isn't uniformity, it's unity. And unity doesn't happen when everyone thinks the same. It happens when everyone feels valued enough to contribute. Leading with love across generations does have its challenges, but here are 4 good ways to get started. Number 1, audit your assumptions. Write them down, make a list, repent, then delete them. Number 2, diversity decision-making tables. If everyone in the room shares your birth decade, you're probably not leading. You may just be reminiscing. Number 3, communicate in layers. Email, video, text, face-to-face. Not because it's trendy, but because it's loving. And number 4, practice curiosity over criticism. Ask, help me understand, instead of, that's just not how we do it. This is so true. Currently in my office, we have 3 different generations: Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z. And I went in thinking this is going to be one of the hardest things I have ever done. And there have been challenges, but it's been so amazing what a little communication and attention to detail can do. Ask the questions. I don't ever immediately disagree with an idea or comment from any of the generations. I asked them to explain their reasoning, and honestly, 9 times out of 10, I end up going with whatever suggestion they make because in the end, it makes the most sense. Just because you're in a leadership role does not mean that you know everything and every other suggestion is wrong. So here's a little pro tip. Everything doesn't have to be your idea. It's okay. Here's the truth. Generational gaps are not the problem. Loveless leadership is. Jesus didn't unite people through shared preference. He united them through sacrificial love. Romans 12:10 reads, "Love one another deeply as brothers and sisters." Love doesn't erase the differences. It redeems them. And if Jesus can build a movement with a fisherman, teens, zealots, and tax collectors, then you can probably handle your boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers. So now, I would like to welcome Mr. Patrick McElhaney and Mr. Cooper Hunt to the show. I've worked with both of them in this position I'm currently in for exactly 1 year, which is crazy to even think about. I've known Patrick going on around 10 years now, and Cooper going on a little over a year, and I'm excited to have them both on to discuss these generational challenges. Welcome back to Flip the Tables. I'm here with Cooper Hunt and Patrick McElhaney, and we will start by just letting them introduce themselves first.
So my name is Cooper Hunt. I work with Bethany and Patrick, and I have been an admissions counselor at our university for almost 3 years. And then a few months ago, I received a promotion that Bethany was kind of instrumental in helping me achieve to be the director of alumni relations. So I've been working at the school for 3 years, ever since I graduated. And yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm Director of Admissions. I've been at Shorter University since 1999. I've been at admissions the entire time. Admissions counselor, regional counselor, assistant director, and director for many, many years.
The fact that you said you've been here since 1999 kind of opens up what we're going to talk about today, the generational gaps in leadership. So Cooper will be representing our Gen Z.
Means I wasn't born when Patrick started working it.
Patrick will be representing Gen X, and I will be your lovely millennial, commenting here and there. So we'll start with a question and see where it goes. The first question is, what is one leadership behavior you value most from older or younger generations, and one that frustrates you?
So for me, I appreciate behavior that is consistent and gives really concise direction, goals, visions, and then gives me the support I need to fulfill those goals, and then support and belief that I'll be able to do that.
So just encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I've noticed when it comes to older generations that I've seen in different jobs that I've had is that I feel like they're strongly motivated, and that's something that I really appreciate a lot and have tried to emulate in my own work ethic. They have a lot of drive and initiative to get her done, so to speak, and just kind of accomplish whatever the task is that if it needs to be done, it's going to get done. Just a matter of fact of how do we do it. So that kind of determination is something that I think is very admirable. I guess as far as the one that frustrates me, I feel it, and this may not be something that applies to everybody, but I think I've just noticed people in generations above mine that they seem to be a little bit more individualized, maybe kind of like sometimes lots of people prefer to be lone wolves and kind of handle things on their own, and maybe a little bit less collaborative, less group work sort of thing, kind of bring in outside opinions, other people's help, tag team it, so to speak. That's just
That's good. My generation, we were called latchkey kids. So basically, we learned how to do a lot of things on our own.
Yeah.
So it's difficult sometimes for leaders and followers, if you will, to, especially for my generation, not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Late in the middle here. I don't know if this sticks to any generation specifically, because I've seen it kind of in all of them. What irritates me the most is taking any small no or it didn't work, so we just got to give up and let's just, we're just not going to be able to do it, instead of being like, no, look, there's opportunities to grow and let's go maybe a different direction. Let's brainstorm together. So that kind of frustrates me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of across all generations. I can't really peg a specific generation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's fair. I mean, if you tried a restaurant one time and you got bad service or a bad food item, and don't return, you may miss out on another great opportunity or scenario.
Well, cool. Question number 2 is, how has your generation's view of work-life balance shaped what you expect from leaders and organizations?
I don't know if I can speak as much for my entire generation, but for me personally, at least, I feel like I've always I come from a very big family, and we're very close, and we value spending time together. We value time away from work. They all have a great work ethic, but we also like to have that time away and really enjoy being together outside of the grind every day. And so I feel like for me personally, that's kind of shaped a lot of the way that I view about work-life balance, is that I do try to keep it balanced. I try as much as I can to not take work home with me and to keep it as separate as possible, just to let each thing kind of have its place and keep family on a little bit higher of a priority than work, but allow the work to still be fulfilling and purposeful, meaningful.
And so for generation before me, which I believe was baby boomers, they were the set hours were to work. We worked from 7 to 5, 7 to 4, whatever the time, 8 to 5. Many that I worked with before is like, okay, we are here to do a job. We're not here to laugh, smile, have a good time. And when we get finished with the day, go home, cook dinner, go to sleep, repeat.
Yeah.
And if they did stuff on the weekends, that was, I know times have changed, but I think that whole work-life balance, I don't recall that being at least a catchphrase while I was growing up. Not at all. People took, at least my family took 1 week vacation in the summer, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, of course, we did sports, band, chorus, whatever the case may be during the school year. But other than that.
I spoke to a class, and I was asked that question by a student because they were looking for just some leadership advice, freshmen, sophomores. And that was one of the questions I couldn't answer because I have not found the science behind work life balance. And I don't know if it's because I'm just more of a relational leader. So I just kind of carry, if I know Cooper's doing something with Lindsay, I'm like, oh, I hope they're safe and have a good time. Like, I'm always thinking about the person, not necessarily the work, but the people that I work with. So, like, people I know that are going on vacation, I'm just like, well, I hope they have a good time and they're safe and they make it back. And it's just like a weight off of my shoulders when I get that first message back and they're like, hey, we had a great time. Let's meet. But I work sometimes at home. But y'all see my kids are around here. I just bring them too and just kind of intermingle it all. Because to me, I guess my family and this all together is my ministry under one umbrella. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
And I think
science.
That is kind of, to contradict what I was saying a little bit earlier about trying to keep it as separate as possible. That's become less the case for me in this job the longer that I've been here, just because of where we do work and what we believe in as Christians. And I think that's something that, I don't know if there's a stepping on further questions or other things in the future, but just like, I think that my generation and me specifically are very motivated by having work that is meaningful on a personal level. And kind of to counter what you were talking about with the generations past, who like, we're coming here to do a job. The job is the job. We do that from 9 to 5, and then we leave, and that's it. And it doesn't have as much of an effect or a significance on the rest of the personal life. I feel like my generation kind of does want their work to have a stronger connection to what they personally believe. I don't think a lot of people are able to do that. I think that's the dream. I think it's the goal, is to have work that people are passionate about. But I consider myself very blessed and very lucky that I get to do that I do get to work in a place and in an environment that does meet my passion and does fulfill something on a personal, on a spiritual level. So I guess I know that kind of runs counter to what I was saying earlier about keeping things separate. But, I guess when you find a place where you fit in well and you like what you do, then
and it's still good to take time with your family. So, and take little mini vacations. Now, I don't know if I'm just weird or I don't like, well, okay, thanks. But I don't like taking week vacations anymore because I feel like I'm gone too long from you guys. And so that's why, like, I'll just take 2 or 3 days and I come back and work. Because I visualize the people that I have the opportunity to lead as my family too. So I don't want to spend too much time away. So maybe that doesn't make sense.
No, it's different.
Different, yeah. Not weird. Not a negative. Yeah.
No, I mean, and from a leadership position, I mean, you do keep up with your folks in the office. I've had, not in my current role, but at previous workplaces where you could have a boss for 2 years and they not ever ask you one personal question.
Yeah.
How's your family? That's a generational thing too, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Sure. All right. Question number 3. Where do you think your generation is most misunderstood in the workplace? And what do you wish other generations would get right about you?
So this might be where I jumped the gun slightly, because it's having to do with purposeful work and meaningful work. Is I do think with Gen Z, a lot of the reputation around us has to do with laziness, or just a reluctance to get out and work, or when they do get out and work, that they don't really care that much about it, and it's just kind of half-hearted. And maybe that's true in some cases and in some places, but yeah, I guess kind of like what I was saying earlier, if the right person can find the right place and can get plugged into something that they really do care about and that they're motivated to be a part of, then I don't think that is always the case. I don't think that the stereotype is necessarily true.
I think probably sometimes it's misunderstood, but like other generations got to a point in their career where they're just stagnant. They don't have any fresh ideas, or they don't think outside the box, and they're not willing to. This is cliche, but this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Even if it's broken, That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Well, that's not always the best case scenario.
Right.
Do it that way. You can do it that way, but I think that as far as what generations would get right about me,
You're perfect.
I listen. I think listening, communication is good. That to have, and I had a boss several years ago that first got here. I was just like, do me a favor, listen to our staff. Actually, listen to them, because there's nothing. Well, it's very frustrating to see you've got this great idea, this great idea, this great idea, and you pitch those, and your leader or whatever is just like, no, without really, why not? Is it that it offends you that you didn't come up with that idea?
Yeah.
There's some that do that, but I think if it's why wouldn't we listen to our coworkers, to where if it's a better opportunity for the workplace, for your constituents, your everyone and above. So
I'm big on giving it a try, and if it don't work, then just try something else.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I say no much, or maybe it's more of not right now. Hit me up later.
And timing is a lot of things, because even sometimes as a leader, you want to say yes.
Yeah.
However, right now is not ideal because of ABC. This is going on,
It goes back to what you just said, listening and communicating that. And that's where, like a couple episodes ago, the transparency part, that's probably something my generation gets slapped with us being too transparent. We share too much. Well, they don't need to know all that. Well, maybe if you shared just a smidge more, they wouldn't be cranky with your decisions.
Right.
Or they would understand why you're making those decisions. You don't have to share every detail, because there's some things you don't need to share, but I do think if you just communicate a little bit more, just with anything, any decision you've made, something you've had to do, it just goes over smoother. And be open for questions. Like, don't be so guarded. What are you afraid of? So the last question I have is, what does trust look like to your generation in a leader, and how is that trust earned or lost?
Well, from playing sports growing up and then playing collegiate baseball, is always comforting to know that, like a head coach, the coaches that I had, they would say, I wouldn't ask you to do this as a drill or do this as a workout unless I wouldn't ask you to do it if I haven't done it before.
Yeah.
Good or bad, they would. So I think with a leader, with any leader, sports, in the office, wherever the case may be, I think giving something a try. Maybe it's the first time everyone in the office, including the leader, was like, well, we've never tried that. Let's give it a whirl. Other than that, I appreciate that. For instance, I worked at a restaurant before, and when you have like a manager that's willing to roll up his or her sleeves, and we've got a mess in the dining room, I'll go grab a mop. Instead of pointing, say, you go do this. I can't do that, because that's just beneath me.
Yeah.
Let's. Yes, I'm the boss, but let's work together. Let's take care of business, so to speak. So that, I think that can enhance the trust level, and then it also could create some bitterness toward that boss if he or she's not willing to go that extra mile. And we've got to carry these items from point A to B. You get those, and I'll meet you over there. Well, here, let me help you. That level of trust or disgust, and it usually leads to unhappy employees that they'll go somewhere else.
I think kind of what you were just talking about with your previous episode about transparency is a big one for my generation, because we do value kind of honesty and being kept in the loop. That, like, if someone is having to be absent from the office a lot for a particular reason, then like that's totally fine. I think my generation is super understanding about people who have to be gone for personal reasons and different things that are going on in their lives. We just would like to know, even if it isn't the most like specific reason of like what all the details of the situation are, but just like, hey, it's something personal that's come up that like I can't be there right now, but just trust me, I'd be there if I could, and I'll be back when I can. That, I think my generation is very understanding about that. We just appreciate being kind of kept in the know as much as possible, because I think that's validating, that transparency, that kind of honest, open communication. It tells us that, like, hey, we're all a part of this team together, and you deserve to know what's going on my end of things, even if it's not all the details. Otherwise, if you were just to say, I'm out by no explanation and kind of get filled in later on, then it can feel like, okay, well, maybe they don't respect me and my position enough to let me know what's happening. And so I just think the communication, the transparency of it is a big piece of how trust is built between leaders and, like I said, followers, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think that's a big one. And then I guess it's lost just in the opposite of that. I guess the example that I kind of already gave, where somebody feels like they maybe were entitled or had the right to know something or to be kept in the loop, to stay updated because something was relevant to them. And then if it was held back, if it was kept kind of more to the side, kind of more privatized, then it's like, okay, well, if you don't trust me with that information that kind of affects me, then how can I trust you in reciprocal situation? So I think just not necessarily seeing each other as equals as far as like my job is as authoritative or as high up as somebody else's job, but just in that, hey, we all work together, even if there's a hierarchy, even if there is a chain of command, like my job is still important and I'm still a piece of this puzzle. And so just kind of being treated with that respect of communication goes a long way, I think.
Piggybacking off what you said, I've literally been in a position where an individual spoke to me for the first time based off of my title change. And I was like, I don't think we're going to be friends. Because that just showed what kind of person or what kind of heart they had, in my opinion. And so it made me question, how are they treating the people that they're overseeing if they treat someone else like that, off the street? Because that was another question the kids asked me, which they asked me some great questions, was how do I handle when I've had a bad day as a leader, or if I've got bad stuff going on at home. And I told them that I try to stay as, the same as I can, but I mean, I'll have subtitles on my face so you guys can pretty much tell if I'm tired or if I've got something on my mind and things like that. But I try to be as open as I can. Sometimes probably overshare, but at least y'all know where I'm at. But just try to be transparent, because I need y'all to trust me enough to keep leading you guys, even though I'm going through whatever I'm going through. But also that helps me trust that you guys can keep things afloat, that I'm not here. Like, I don't have to be here. And I love that. Like, that I know that things are going to go. And I don't think a lot of leaders have that. Mm-hmm. Because they've not taken the time to build the trust with their people. And I don't know if it is because they've got multiple generations and they just don't know how to talk to them, or if it's what, set in their ways and don't want to. It's crazy. Do y'all have any questions you want to add to the discussion? I've asked all four of them. So.
Oh yeah, no, I think that not a question, just a comment.
Okay.
I think Cooper's right. I think in many things he said, but one in particular is just like, especially his generation, like keeping them in the loop. Mm-hmm. They don't need to know all the details. Hey, I'm going to be leaving tomorrow at 3:00. I'll be out. Call or text me if you need me.
Yeah,
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Many opportunities throughout any given day to where you can be a ray of sunshine, a positive note to someone just by stopping by their office, just to say, hey, and if you pay attention, especially from a guy, if you just pay attention a little bit, you can learn a lot about people. Just pay attention. Men, women, perhaps young, older, handle scenarios differently. And I think as a leader or a mentor, chances are good that you've had more life office experiences throughout the years. So you can take that leadership into a mentor role. Okay, well, instead of saying, well, you should handle this way, you can say, well, I had a similar situation, 12 years ago. Here's what I did, and it seemed to work out okay. Or here's what I did, and it did not work. Now, you can try either one or try neither. Yeah. But just to give, just a little life experience. Like I said, if we just listen, pay attention just a little bit, you can learn a lot. Yeah. About yourself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any words? Mm-hmm. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
Representing your generations.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed a little generational discussion and dialogue between 3 different generations throughout this episode. As we move forward, we are getting into more of a reason behind the whole name of this podcast, Flip the Tables. Our next episode is titled Leading with Fear. Absolutely not. Whereas it's been a little deceiving to some, I'm excited to break it down for you. We will break down the fact that leaders who utilize fear in their leadership are the exact opposite of those of us who utilize love. Of course, with scripture and research, we will prove how fear was not in the wheelhouse of Jesus' leadership. It should not be in ours. So join me here back next week, same time, same platforms. This is Flip the Tables. I'm Bethany Brady, and we are leading differently.